The CEO who vowed never to love again meets the one woman who breaks his vow. My beautiful family, welcome back to where stories come alive and hearts find connection. I've missed you all so deeply, and today I return with a tale that has been living in my soul, waiting for the perfect moment to share with you. My cherished viewers who make this space feel like home. The bond we share through these stories is something I treasure deeply. Your presence here isn't just appreciated, it means everything to me. Now, before we dive into today's tale, let's take a moment for something truly special, a heartfelt prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you with a heart full of gratitude for every single member of this family. Lord, bless every one of them, our wonderful viewers, our loyal supporters, and everyone who finds comfort, joy, and love in this space. Whatever they may be facing today, Father, lift them up. Fill their hearts with peace, their minds with wisdom, and their lives with overflowing joy. May their dreams blossom into reality. May their struggles turn into triumphs. And may they always feel surrounded by love, divine and human. Amen. So before we dive into today's story, go ahead and drop the name of your country in the comments. Let's celebrate how beautifully connected we are. If you are satisfied with our beautiful stories, please say a big, "Yes, I am satisfied," in the comment section below. Your comments keep me on track to create more amazing stories. Take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear might just stay with you forever. Let's begin. Marcus Blackwood commanded attention without effort. 6'2" with shoulders that filled his bespoke Armani suits to perfection, he moved through rooms like a winter storm, powerful, inevitable, and impossible to ignore. His face belonged on Renaissance paintings, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and lips that rarely smiled except in calculated business pleasantries. But it was his eyes that told his story, steel gray with flecks of silver, simultaneously penetrating and unreachable. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who expected to be obeyed, low, resonant, with an edge of frost that warned others to maintain their distance. At 35, his dark hair showed distinguished silver at the temples, not from age but from the weight of building Blackwood Technologies into Bayside City's most dominant corporation. His hands, strong, with long fingers, moved with deliberate precision whether signing billion-dollar contracts or adjusting his platinum cufflinks. He wore no rings, no watch, no adornments. Vulnerability came in many forms, and Marcus believed accessories were simply handles for others to grab onto. When he entered boardrooms, women and men alike held their breath, not merely from attraction but from the sheer force of his presence. His cologne, something expensive and masculine that evoked dark woods and winter nights, lingered after he departed, much like the impression he left on everyone he encountered, unforgettable, intimidating, and maddeningly distant. Marcus had perfected the art of being completely visible yet entirely unseen. 5 years earlier, Marcus had been different. Still brilliant, still driven, but with a capacity for trust that proved to be his undoing. His fiancée, Victoria, hadn't just broken his heart. She'd stolen half his company's proprietary technology and disappeared overnight, leaving his empire vulnerable and his pride shattered. The betrayal taught him that love was the ultimate competitive disadvantage. His public vow, made during a charity gala with cameras flashing, became Bayside's most quoted moment. Love is a luxury for those who can afford failure. I cannot. The declaration wasn't made in passion but cold calculation, a strategic move to ensure no one would ever again mistake his business decisions for emotional ones. Behind closed doors, Marcus's pain ran deeper than anyone suspected. His mother had abandoned the family when he was 10. His father had shown affection only when Marcus exceeded expectations, and Victoria had merely confirmed what he'd always suspected. Connection led inevitably to abandonment. Alone in his penthouse overlooking the bay, he sometimes stood at the windows watching raindrops race down glass, seeing in them reflections of tears he refused to shed. His wealth couldn't fill the emptiness he pretended didn't exist. His success couldn't warm the chill that had settled in his chest. Instead, he embraced the cold, made it his armor, his identity, his protection against a world that had taught him love was simply leverage disguised as affection. Elena Cortez hadn't earned the nickname Ice Queen of Lockwood Law by accident. At 28, she'd become the youngest senior partner in the firm's history, with a reputation for dismantling opposing counsel with surgical precision. Her dark eyes missed nothing, her mind calculated possibilities 10 steps ahead, and her heart, well, she'd locked that away after learning her own bitter lessons about trust. Richard Blackwood, Marcus's father, loomed large even from the grave. His portrait hung in the Blackwood Technologies lobby, a reminder of expectations that continued beyond death. Marcus's executive assistant, Sophia Chen, had served as gatekeeper for 7 years, perhaps the only person who glimpsed occasional cracks in his facade. Elena's family presented their own complications. Her father, Diego Cortez, had built Cortez Shipping from nothing, creating a legacy he expected his daughter to protect at all costs. Her mother, Isabella, had taught Elena that love was beautiful but dangerous, a lesson reinforced when Isabella discovered Diego's years-long affair with his secretary. Then there was James Harrison, Blackwood Technologies' silver-tongued chief operating officer, whose loyalty to Marcus was genuine but not unlimited. The board members circled like well-dressed sharks, watching for any sign that their CEO's emotional detachment might be weakening. And Victoria Shaw, now Victoria Pearson, who had disappeared to Europe with her stolen patents but whose shadow still darkened Marcus's expressions whenever her name appeared in business journals. Bayside City rose like a crystal and steel dream against the Pacific, its skyscrapers reaching toward clouds that often hung low and heavy with rain. The Blackwood Tower dominated the skyline, 60 stories of reflective glass that changed color with the weather, mirroring the unpredictable temperament of its owner. From his penthouse on the top floor, Marcus could see the entirety of his domain, the financial district where his word moved markets, the harbor where ships carried his technology worldwide, the exclusive neighborhoods where power was traded over perfectly aged whiskey. Lockwood Law occupied the 42nd floor of a competing tower, its conference rooms designed to intimidate with floor-to-ceiling windows that made visitors feel they were perpetually on the edge of falling. The city itself seemed designed for dramatic confrontations. Fog rolling in without warning, rain that could shift from gentle mist to driving sheets in moments, sudden breaks of sunlight that illuminated everything with blinding clarity before disappearing again. In the Obsidian Room, the private dining space at the top of the Grand Meridian Hotel, the elite of Bayside negotiated marriages and mergers with equal dispassion. This was where Marcus first noticed Elena, arguing a point with such cold fire that even he had paused to listen. The city's rhythm matched their hearts, efficient, relentless, constantly moving forward yet somehow suspended in time. Between the gleaming towers and beneath the mercurial sky, ordinary people lived and loved, their emotions flowing freely while Marcus and Elena moved through the same spaces encased in their separate shells of ice, unaware that they were on a collision course that would crack their carefully constructed worlds wide open. The Blackwood-Cortez merger wasn't Elena's idea. When Diego Cortez called her to his waterfront mansion and explained that Cortez Shipping needed Blackwood Technologies infrastructure to survive in the digital age, she saw it as a failure rather than an opportunity. Her father's revelation that the merger would require more than contracts, it would demand a marriage, landed like a blow to her solar plexus. "This is medieval," Elena hissed, pacing the study where generations of Cortez men had made decisions that shaped destinies. You can't seriously expect me to marry a man who publicly declared love a weakness. Diego's eyes, so like her own, hardened with the pragmatism that had built their empire. The Blackwood board won't accept anything less. They want assurance this isn't a takeover but a true joining of legacies. What her father didn't say, what he didn't need to say, was that without Blackwood's digital logistics platform, Cortez shipping would collapse within 18 months. Their ships would continue crossing oceans, but their cargo would diminish as competitors with better technology secured the contracts that had once been theirs by right. The Blackwood Tower felt like a mausoleum when Elena arrived for their first meeting, all polished surfaces and hushed voices. The executive floor hummed with subdued energy, employees moving with the careful precision of those who knew they served a demanding master. Sophia Chen's eyes had widened slightly when announcing Elena's arrival through the intercom, the only indication that this meeting was unusual. And then there was Marcus himself, standing at the windows like a statue carved from ambition and restraint, turning to assess her with those infamous gray eyes that missed nothing. In person, the notorious Ice King of Bayside was both exactly what she expected and somehow more. Taller, his presence more commanding, his gaze more penetrating than photographs had captured. "Miss Cortez," he said, voice deep and controlled with an edge that suggested he was used to commanding rooms much larger than this. "I appreciate your punctuality." Elena had prepared for this meeting as she would a high-stakes court case, anticipating arguments, constructing defenses, identifying weaknesses. What she hadn't prepared for was her own visceral reaction to Marcus Blackwood's proximity. Something electric charged the air between them, a recognition perhaps, that here was someone who understood what it meant to build fortresses around vulnerability. "Mr. Blackwood," she kept her voice steady, "shall we dispense with pleasantries and address the arrangement our families seem intent on forcing upon us?" A slight lift of his eyebrows suggested he hadn't expected such directness. Good. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of being the most composed person in the room. "Forcing is a strong word," he replied, moving to the conference table where contracts awaited. "I presumed this was as advantageous for you as it is necessary for me." The assumption irritated her more than it should have. Necessary? The great Marcus Blackwood admitting he needs something. Something flickered in his expression, anger perhaps, or surprise that she would challenge him in his domain. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Not something. Someone. Your company's shipping routes through Southeast Asia can't be replicated without years of relationship building." As they discussed terms, 2 years of marriage, separate residences if they chose, mutual business benefits, and a clean dissolution at the end, Elena found herself studying him with growing curiosity. The contract was coldly practical, yet occasionally she caught something in his eyes as he spoke of the future, a flicker of something beyond calculation. "And your famous vow?" she asked finally. "The one about never loving again? How does that factor into our arrangement?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That particular asset isn't part of our negotiations, Miss Cortez." "Elena," she corrected, leaning forward slightly. "If we're to be married, even on paper, we should at least use first names." "Elena, then." The way he said her name sent an unwelcome shiver down her spine. "My personal boundaries remain non-negotiable." "My beautiful souls, have you ever noticed how the walls we build to keep others out often become the prisons that keep us locked within?" As Elena and Marcus negotiate their marriage of convenience, they believe they're simply making a business arrangement. But the universe has a way of bringing us exactly what we need, disguised as what we think we want. I can feel your hearts connecting with these two guarded souls. If you've ever found yourself face to face with someone who challenges your carefully constructed defenses, type "walls crumbling" in the comments. Share that moment of recognition with our family here, because what's coming next will show you how quickly our most solid foundations can begin to shake when the right earthquake arrives. Their wedding day arrived with the mathematical precision that characterized everything in Marcus's life. St. Francis Cathedral stood against Bayside's twilight sky, its Gothic spires reaching toward clouds tinged rose-gold by the setting sun. Inside, white orchids and roses transformed ancient stones into something ethereal, a facade of romance that masked the business transaction at the heart of the ceremony. Elena stood before the full-length mirror in the bride's chamber, studying her reflection with clinical detachment. The wedding dress was a masterpiece of understated elegance, ivory silk that flowed like water, with a neckline that suggested rather than revealed. The Cortez family diamonds adorned her dark hair, catching light like captured stars. "You look beautiful," her mother whispered, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I just wish—" "Don't," Elena cut her off gently. "We both know what this is." When the cathedral doors opened and the wedding march began, Elena gripped her father's arm tightly, drawing strength from his steady presence. The gathered guests, Bayside's elite, business partners, shareholders, watched with calculating eyes as she processed toward her future. And then she saw Marcus. He stood at the altar like a statue carved from determination, his black tuxedo emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his frame. His face revealed nothing, but as their eyes met, something flickered in his gaze, something that made her breath catch and her steps falter momentarily. The exchange of vows was perfunctory, neither wanting to write their own, knowing any personal touches would be lies. When Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, a flawless diamond set in platinum, his touch lingered a fraction longer than necessary, sending an unexpected current up her arm. The reception at the Grand Meridian Hotel transformed its ballroom into a winter wonderland of crystal and silver. Elena played her part perfectly, smiling at appropriate moments, dancing with the right people, her hand resting just so on Marcus's arm when photographers approached. "You're quite the actress," Marcus observed during their first dance, his hand warm against the small of her back. "I could say the same about you," she replied, smiling up at him while maintaining their picture-perfect image. That speech about looking forward to our future together was particularly convincing. His fingers tightened slightly on her waist. "Who says it wasn't true? Our company's future together is quite promising." "Ah yes, the only future you care about." She let him spin her out and back, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. "Tell me," his voice dropped lower, almost intimate, "do you practice being this cold, or does it come naturally?" "About as naturally as your infamous detachment, I'd imagine," she countered, though something in his tone made her heart beat faster. "Though I have to wonder what you're hiding beneath all that frost." "Everything about you concerns me now." His eyes locked with hers, intense and searching. "We're married, Elena. Like it or not, your defenses are my business." "As yours are mine," she challenged, pulse quickening despite her best efforts. "Shall we discuss what you're hiding behind that wall of yours?" The music ended before he could respond, and they were swept into another round of congratulations and photographs. But something had shifted between them, a gauntlet thrown down, a challenge issued. Two people who had sworn never to be vulnerable again found themselves facing an opponent worthy of their best defenses. And the most dangerous battle of all was just beginning. 3 months into their marriage of convenience, nothing about Elena's life felt convenient anymore. The careful distance she and Marcus had maintained since their wedding night was crumbling, replaced by something far more dangerous: familiarity. Despite their separate bedrooms in the sprawling penthouse overlooking Bayside Harbor, they'd fallen into domestic patterns neither had anticipated. Shared dinners had become a nightly ritual, ostensibly to discuss business matters, but increasingly filled with charged silences and heated debates that had nothing to do with their company's merger. Tonight changed everything. A freak thunderstorm had knocked out power across downtown Bayside, leaving the penthouse illuminated only by emergency lighting and the occasional flash of lightning that turned windows into brilliant canvases of electric blue. Elena found Marcus in his study, the soft glow of his laptop casting shadows across his face as he worked despite the late hour. "The Morrison contract is finished," she said, leaning against the doorframe, wineglass in hand. "Lockwood's legal team will have it ready for signatures by morning." Marcus looked up, his features softened in the dim light. "You should have gone home hours ago." "This is home, isn't it?" The words slipped out before she could catch them. "At least for the next 21 months. Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability, perhaps, quickly masked. "Come see this," he said instead of addressing her comment. Curious, Elena crossed to his desk, leaning over his shoulder to view the screen. The proximity was intoxicating, his cologne mixing with the scent of rain blowing in through the partially opened window. On screen wasn't work at all, but a satellite image of a small island. "What am I looking at?" she asked, acutely aware of how close they were standing. "Isla Secreto," he said quietly. "My private island off the Costa Rican coast. No one knows I own it, not the board, not the press, not even Sophia." Elena stared at the screen, then at him, understanding the significance. Marcus Blackwood shared nothing personal, ever. "Why are you showing me this?" His eyes met hers, startlingly unguarded. "Because last night you had a nightmare. I heard you through the wall." The breath left her lungs. She dreamed of drowning, of her father's company sinking beneath waves while she struggled to save it. She'd woken gasping, certain she'd made no sound. "Everyone needs somewhere to escape," he continued, his voice lower. "Somewhere the world can't find them. This is mine. And now it's yours too, if you ever need it." A crack of thunder shook the penthouse, and the emergency lights flickered once before plunging them into darkness. In the momentary blindness, Elena felt Marcus's hand find hers, warm and steady against her suddenly cold fingers. The darkness changed something fundamental between them. Unable to see each other's defenses, words flowed more freely in the blackness of the storm-wrapped penthouse. "Why did you really agree to this marriage?" Marcus asked, his voice disembodied in the darkness. They sat on opposite ends of the sofa in the living room, a single candle casting more shadows than light. Elena swirled the wine in her glass, grateful he couldn't see her face clearly. "The company needed it. You know that." "No." His voice was gentle but insistent. "The truth, Elena." The thunder rumbled again, closer this time, and something in Elena surrendered to the storm. "I wanted to prove something," she admitted. "That I could do this, marriage, without emotion. That I could succeed where my mother failed." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. When Marcus didn't immediately respond, she filled the silence. "And you? Why agree to marry someone when you publicly swore love would never touch you again?" His answer, when it came, was barely audible above the rain. Because you were the first person I met who seemed more afraid of love than I am." The candle flickered, illuminating the vulnerability in his eyes for just a moment before shadows reclaimed him. But it was enough. Elena had seen behind the mask, and nothing between them would ever be the same. Dawn broke over Bayside with the pristine clarity that often follows storms, the sky washed clean of clouds, the harbor glistening like polished glass. Elena woke on the living room sofa, a cashmere throw carefully tucked around her that hadn't been there when she fell asleep. The penthouse was empty, Marcus already gone to the office according to the note propped against the coffee pot. Back to reality. Back to pretending last night's revelations hadn't happened. Or so she thought, until her phone chimed with a calendar invitation: weekend at Isla Secreto, private jet from Bayside Airport, Friday 5 p.m. As she stared at the screen, a text message appeared beneath it: "No business discussions allowed. Just us. If you're willing." Elena's finger hovered over the accept button, her heart racing with contradictory impulses. Accepting meant acknowledging something was changing between them. Declining meant retreating to the safety of their arrangement. Before she could decide, breaking news alerts flooded her phone. Victoria Pearson returns to Bayside. Former Blackwood fiancé launches competing tech platform. Will the Ice King's ex melt his new marriage? The carefully constructed world they'd been building suddenly faced its first real threat. And Elena was surprised to discover how fiercely she wanted to protect it. Not just their business arrangement, but the fragile connection that had sparked in last night's darkness. Her finger pressed "accept" on the calendar invitation just as another text from Marcus appeared: "Victoria's back. Board meeting called. This changes everything." But which everything did he mean? The board meeting resembled a battlefield more than a corporate gathering. Victoria Pearson, sleek, sophisticated, and dangerous in a blood-red suit, sat opposite Marcus at the conference table, her smile sharp as a blade. Elena observed from the corner, officially present as Cortez Shipping's representative, unofficially watching her husband face the woman who had shattered his trust. "Blackwood's Asian market share has slipped 12%, Victoria announced, sliding glossy reports across the table. "My new platform, Nexus, has secured contracts with 3 of your largest clients." Her eyes flickered to Elena. "Marriage doesn't seem to be helping your business acumen, Marcus." Elena saw Marcus's knuckles whiten around his pen, the only visible crack in his perfect composure. Temporary setbacks, Victoria. Nothing more. The threat was just beginning. That evening, financial analysts across 3 networks questioned whether the Ice King had lost his edge, wondering if emotional entanglement had compromised his legendary focus. By morning, Blackwood stock had dropped 8 points. Their weekend escape to Isla Secreto never happened. Instead, they worked 18-hour days strategizing countermoves, their growing personal connection subsumed by crisis management. Yet even in professional mode, something had changed. Marcus's hand lingering on Elena's shoulder as they reviewed documents, their bodies gravitating closer during late-night strategy sessions. The second blow came when the Cortez family's shipping records were mysteriously leaked to the press, revealing financial irregularities from Diego's early years. Nothing illegal, but embarrassing enough to cast doubt on the merger's foundations. Elena spent 3 sleepless nights rebuilding her family's reputation, while Marcus worked his global contacts to trace the leak. It was Victoria, he confirmed, joining Elena on their penthouse balcony at 3 a.m. on the 4th night, offering a tumbler of amber liquid that glowed in the moonlight. Her digital fingerprints are subtle, but unmistakable. Elena accepted the drink, their fingers brushing. She's not just attacking Blackwood. She's targeting us specifically." "Yes." His voice held an edge she hadn't heard before, protective, almost possessive. "This is personal for her." "Why?" "Because she left you. Because I've moved on." Marcus's gaze held hers with startling intensity. And she never expected that. The third challenge blindsided them both. Photos appeared in Bayside's most notorious gossip site, Marcus and his executive assistant Sophia in what appeared to be an intimate embrace in his office. The timestamp: yesterday afternoon. Elena stared at the images on her phone, something painful and unfamiliar twisting in her chest. She didn't believe it, couldn't believe it, yet doubt crept in like poison. When Marcus called to explain, she let it go to voicemail, then immediately regretted her cowardice. The penthouse door opened just after midnight. Elena sat in darkness, the city lights providing the only illumination as Marcus entered, his silhouette familiar yet suddenly uncertain in their shared space. "It's not what it looks like," he said, remaining by the door as if unsure of his welcome. "I know," she replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Victoria's too obvious. The staging, the convenient timing, its manipulation. Marcus moved closer, relief evident in his shoulders. Sophia's grandmother was hospitalized. She received the call in my office and broke down. The photo was taken through the window when I was comforting her. "You don't need to explain," Elena said, rising to meet him. "I trust you." The words hung between them, heavy with significance. Trust, the thing they both guarded most fiercely, now extended between them like a lifeline. "Say that again," Marcus whispered, close enough now that she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. "I trust you," Elena repeated, the admission both terrifying and liberating. "I don't know when it happened, but I do." The attacks continued, business, personal, relentless. But something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer two individuals in a business arrangement. They had become partners in every sense except the final one. Late one night, as they worked side by side in his home office, Elena noticed Marcus watching her instead of his computer screen. "What?" she asked, self-conscious under his gaze. "I've been thinking about the night of the blackout," he said, his voice low. "About what you said regarding your mother." Elena tensed. She rarely spoke of her mother's humiliation when Diego's affair became public knowledge, of watching a woman who believed in love reduced to bitter resignation. "My mother believed in soulmates," she said carefully. "She thought my father was hers. When he betrayed her, she didn't just lose her husband, she lost her entire worldview." Marcus moved from his chair to perch on the edge of her desk, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. "And that's why you don't believe in love? Because it destroyed her." "I believe love exists," Elena clarified, meeting his eyes. "I just don't believe it's enough. Emotions fade. Circumstances change. Practical considerations remain. And us." The question was barely audible. "What are we, Elena?" The vulnerability in his question caught her off guard. This wasn't the Ice King of Bayside, the untouchable CEO. This was simply Marcus, a man who had been betrayed, who had sworn never to risk his heart again, now looking at her with eyes that asked questions his pride would never allow him to voice. "We're..." She began, then faltered. What were they? Not merely business partners anymore. Not quite lovers. Somewhere in between, in uncharted territory neither had expected to explore. Complicated, she finished, her voice soft. We're complicated. His smile held an unexpected warmth. I can accept complicated. Later that week, Elena found a small gift box on her pillow. Inside lay an antique key on a platinum chain, with a note in Marcus's precise handwriting, "To my private island. To my private office. To everything I've kept locked away. Whenever you're ready." She wore it beneath her blouse the next day, the metal warm against her skin, a secret weight that felt like possibility. My beautiful family, isn't it amazing how the universe tests us precisely when we're most vulnerable? Just as Elena and Marcus begin to lower their defenses, life sends the perfect storm to challenge their newfound trust. I see your hearts connecting with their journey through your comments and messages. If you've ever found yourself beginning to trust again after being hurt, if you felt that terrifying moment of choosing vulnerability over safety, share your courage with our family. Type "choosing trust" in the comments to strengthen all those among us who stand at that same crossroads today. The annual Bayside Children's Hospital Charity Gala arrived, the most photographed social event of the season and their first major public appearance since Victoria's return. Elena chose a gown of deep burgundy silk that flowed like wine over her curves, a high neckline in front that plunged dramatically in back, revealing the elegant line of her spine. Around her neck, visible to everyone, she wore Marcus's key. They moved through the ballroom with practiced ease, the perfect power couple, until Elena excused herself to the ladies' room. Returning through the quiet corridor, she heard voices from a partially open door. "Your wife is wearing your key." Victoria's voice, smug and knowing. "The same key you once promised to me." "That was a lifetime ago." Marcus's voice, controlled but with an underlying tension. "Is it?" Victoria's laugh was soft, dangerous. "You swore you'd never love again, that you'd never be that vulnerable. Yet here you are, falling for your convenience bride. How perfectly predictable. You know nothing about my marriage. I know everything about you, Marcus, including the secret you've kept from everyone, even her. Especially her." Elena froze, heart pounding. "Don't." Marcus's voice had dropped to a warning growl. "Why not?" Victoria purred. "Shouldn't your wife know the truth about you? About what really happened 5 years ago? About who you really are beneath all that ice?" Elena backed away, suddenly unable to breathe. What secret could be so devastating that Victoria would use it as a weapon? What truth didn't she know about the man whose key she wore against her heart? The gala continued around them, a swirl of diamonds and champagne, while Elena felt her world tilting on its axis. She avoided Marcus for an hour, her mind racing with possibilities, each darker than the last. When he finally cornered her on the rooftop garden, his face was drawn with concern. "You heard," he said simply, not a question but a recognition. Bayside sparkled below them, a carpet of lights stretching to the inky harbor. Elena gripped the stone balustrade, steadying herself against the night wind that pulled at her gown. "What secret, Marcus? What could possibly be worse than everything I already know?" Lightning illuminated the sky in the distance, another storm approaching, both literally and figuratively. Marcus moved beside her, close but not touching, his profile sharp against the illuminated skyline. "5 years ago, when Victoria stole my patents," he began, voice tight with suppressed emotion, "she didn't just betray me, she destroyed me. Not professionally. Personally." Elena held her breath, waiting. "I tried to end my life." The confession hung between them, raw and exposed as a nerve. Elena turned to face him fully, seeing the shame and vulnerability etched into his features. The great Marcus Blackwood, brought to his knees by heartbreak, he continued bitterly. I took sleeping pills with whiskey in this very penthouse. Sophia found me the next morning when I missed a board meeting. The official story was exhaustion, a brief hospitalization for overwork. Marcus, Elena whispered, reaching for him, but he stepped back. My public vow against love wasn't just arrogance, it was survival. His voice broke slightly. I promised myself I would never again give anyone that kind of power over me. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then heavier. Neither moved to seek shelter. But you, he looked at her now, rain streaming down his face, indistinguishable from tears. You with your practical arrangements and emotional detachment, you seemed safe. Until you weren't. Elena moved closer, rain soaking her silk gown, her hand finding his face. And now I'm terrified, he admitted, voice barely audible above the storm. Because losing a business partner would be inconvenient. Losing you would be unbearable. Lightning cracked across the sky as Elena pulled his face down to hers, their lips meeting with the force of a collision long delayed. His arms encircled her waist, lifting her against him as though she might disappear. The rain poured down, washing away pretense, leaving only raw, undeniable truth between them. I love you, he whispered against her mouth. God help me, I love you. The transformation wasn't instantaneous but inevitable, like ice giving way to spring, not in a single moment but through countless tiny surrenders. In the 3 weeks following the gala, Marcus and Elena rebuilt their relationship from foundation to pinnacle, this time with truth as the cornerstone. In the boardroom, they remained formidable, perhaps even more so now that they moved in perfect synchronicity. But behind closed doors, walls crumbled like ancient fortresses finally surrendering to time. I never expected this, Elena confessed one night as they lay tangled in sheets, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. When I agreed to marry you, I thought I was protecting myself. Marcus's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. And now I understand what my mother meant about soulmates, she said softly. Not that love conquers all, but that the right person makes vulnerability feel like strength. The change manifested in subtle ways, Marcus laughing more freely, Elena allowing herself to be cared for without seeing it as weakness. He began leaving encouraging notes on her legal briefs. She started joining him for morning runs along the harbor. When either received good news, their first instinct was to share it with the other. Most significantly, Marcus began speaking openly about his darkest moments, exorcising the shame that had poisoned him for years. Elena shared her own fears, of becoming her mother, of loving someone who might betray her, of losing herself in another person. We're not losing ourselves, Marcus told her, presenting matching platinum key pendants one evening. We're finding the parts we locked away. Their marriage, begun as a business merger, had transformed into something neither had believed possible. A partnership of equals who strengthened rather than diminished each other, who challenged without destroying, who loved without consuming. Victoria's final attack came, predictably, at the annual shareholders' meeting. With calculated precision, she presented a hostile takeover bid for Cortez Shipping, backed by foreign investors with deep pockets. Your father's company is failing, she announced to the packed room, her smile victorious as she addressed Elena directly. Our offer is generous, considering the circumstances. Sign today, or watch your family legacy collapse entirely. The room fell silent, all eyes on Elena. She rose slowly, elegant in a tailored white suit that contrasted sharply with Victoria's crimson dress. "Ms. Pearson," Elena's voice carried clearly through the hushed room, "you fundamentally misunderstand what makes a company valuable." She moved to the front of the room, where digital screens displayed both companies' logos. "Cortez Shipping isn't failing, it's evolving. Today, we're announcing the complete integration of Blackwood's proprietary logistics platform with our global shipping network, creating the industry's first fully automated, AI-optimized supply chain." Gasps and murmurs filled the room as Elena revealed quarterly projections that showed exponential growth. Marcus joined her at the podium, their shoulders touching in a subtle display of unity. "Furthermore," he continued seamlessly, "this isn't just a business announcement. Elena and I wish to make it clear that our marriage, which began as a strategic alliance, has become the foundation of both our personal and professional lives." Victoria's face flushed with anger as Marcus reached for Elena's hand. "I once stood before cameras and declared that love was a weakness I couldn't afford," he addressed the room, but his eyes remained on Elena. "I was wrong. With the right partner, love becomes your greatest competitive advantage." The board erupted in applause as market alerts chimed throughout the room. Blackwood Cortez stock soaring, Victoria's Nexus platform trading downward. The takeover bid collapsed within hours. Later, watching Victoria's car disappear from the Blackwood Tower parking garage, Elena felt Marcus's arms encircle her from behind. "You always knew the key to business success," she teased, leaning back against his chest. "Find the right partner." His lips brushed her temple. "I finally found the key to everything." 1 year after their arranged marriage began, Marcus and Elena stood together on the private balcony of their penthouse, watching fireworks illuminate Bayside Harbor. The anniversary celebration below, hosted by both companies to commemorate their successful merger, continued without them. They'd made their speeches, accepted congratulations, and then quietly slipped away to share this moment alone. "Remember when you asked what we were?" Marcus said, his arm wrapped around Elena's waist as they gazed at the glittering skyline. "And you said, complicated." Elena smiled, leaning into his embrace. "I was terrified to admit even that much. And now—" His fingers traced the platinum key that still hung around her neck, matching the one he wore. "Now I understand what I never wanted to believe." She turned in his arms, meeting his gaze directly. "That sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves become the prisons that confine us." The man before her bore little resemblance to the Ice King she'd first encountered in that sterile conference room. Oh, Marcus remained formidable in business, perhaps even more so with Elena at his side, but the frost had melted from his eyes, replaced by warmth that transformed his entire being. He smiled more, laughed freely, and most importantly, loved without reservation. "I spent 5 years convinced that vulnerability was weakness," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face with tender precision. "Every decision calibrated to prevent anyone from ever having power over me again. And I convinced myself that practical considerations were all that mattered," Elena acknowledged. "That emotions were liabilities to be managed rather than experiences to be embraced." They'd both been wrong. In finding each other, in slowly, painfully dismantling their defenses, they hadn't become weaker. They'd become unbreakable. Their companies thrived under their unified leadership, but more importantly, they discovered a truth neither had believed possible: that the right person doesn't exploit your vulnerability but treasures it, doesn't diminish your strength but amplifies it. "Tomorrow I'm announcing the Marcus and Elena Blackwood Foundation," he revealed, taking her hands in his. dedicated to mental health support for executives and entrepreneurs. Because if the Ice King of Bayside can admit he once stood at the edge of despair and found his way back, perhaps others won't suffer in silence. Elena's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but recognition of how far they'd both traveled. "From business arrangement to changing lives," she whispered. "We've come a long way from that marriage contract." "The best journeys are the unexpected ones," Marcus replied, drawing her closer as new fireworks bloomed against the night sky. My beautiful souls, the story of Marcus and Elena speaks to a truth we all know but often forget. Our greatest strength often lies hidden behind our deepest fears. Their journey reminds us that what we resist most, vulnerability, trust, connection, is frequently what we need most desperately. Think about the walls in your own life. We build them brick by brick, year by year. Each disappointment, each betrayal, each moment of abandonment becomes another layer of protection. We tell ourselves we're being strong, being smart, being practical. But walls don't just keep others out, they lock us in. What Elena and Marcus discovered, what each of us must discover in our own way, is that true strength doesn't come from perfect protection. It comes from the courage to remain open despite knowing we might be hurt. It comes from discernment rather than distrust, from carefully chosen vulnerability rather than impenetrable armor. The business merger that began their story was just a metaphor for what happens when we finally allow the separated parts of ourselves to integrate: the practical and the passionate, the cautious and the courageous, the broken and the healing. Wholeness isn't found in perfect defense, but in perfect alignment of all we are. Beautiful family, I see you nodding, perhaps wiping away tears, because Elena and Marcus's struggle resonates with your own. Some of you have been betrayed by those you trusted most. Some have made vows in pain, swearing never to risk your heart again. Some stand at crossroads this very moment, wondering whether to maintain your walls or begin the terrifying work of dismantling them. Your stories have filled our comment section. Tales of trust broken and rebuilt, of hearts frozen and thawed, of business partnerships that became life partnerships against all odds. You've shared your fears of vulnerability and your triumphs over those same fears. Remember the moment Elena discovered Marcus's secret at the gala? That terrifying precipice where she had to choose between retreating to safety or advancing toward deeper connection. We all face such moments in our relationships, our careers, our personal growth journeys. The question isn't whether these moments will come, but how we'll respond when they do. Will you choose the security of isolation or the brave uncertainty of connection? Will you maintain perfect control or surrender to the beautiful mess of authentic living? There's no single right answer. Each path has its wisdom. But know this, whichever path you choose, you walk it surrounded by our community who understands both the appeal of the ice and the warmth of the thaw. My precious family, if this story touched something deep within you, I'm asking you to take one small brave step today. Share this video with someone whose heart might need this message. Type "from ice to fire" in the comments and tell us one wall you're ready to examine in your own life. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Love and Twilights. This community has become a sanctuary for authentic souls seeking deeper connection, and your vulnerability strengthens us all. When we share our journeys, our fears, our growth, our setbacks, our triumphs, we create a tapestry of courage that wraps around each member of our family. Remember, beautiful souls, the walls we build in darkness can only be dismantled in light. Let's shine that light together, finding our way from isolation to connection, from fear to love, from ice to fire. Because that journey, the most terrifying and rewarding one we'll ever take, was never meant to be walked alone. Until next time, my precious family, may your hearts remain open and your spirits brave. The world needs your unique light, shining without the shadows of fear to dim it.